Davis. I mean, $500. What? What?
I think here.
Oh, okay. Somebody said you were responsible for that. Into your ticket account. That's it's going to be a great. We're going to wrap up KPAD next Wednesday. I know Brock is going to have all kinds of news for us on that. Doing great. Let's see what else we have. Emma Land will be here next week. She is the recipient of that scholarship. We have folks from Christiansburg with us today. Wave back there, guys. You'll be introduced later. Thank you for joining us. And with that, the call for introspection today will be John Montgomery, and the pledge of allegiance will be Joyce.
Take my grandson for that.
Thank you very much.
My little kid in this jar.
Thank you, President Ben. I'm a substitute for Preston Tyler, who is at a funeral today.
That's right.
Many of you know I
Well, like I
serve
said,
as the
thanks for
treasurer of this
participating.
club, and so in light of that, my introspection deals with something with a accounting point of view. Imagine there is a bank that credits your account each morning with $86,400. It carries over no balance from day to day. Every evening deletes whatever part of the balance you failed to use during the day. What would you do with it? Well, you draw out every cent, of course. Each of us has such a bank. Its name is time. Every morning, you are credited with 86,400 seconds. There's where that number comes from. Every night, it writes off as lost whatever this time you failed to invest to good purpose. It carries over no balance. It allows no overdraft. Each day, it opens a new account for you. Each day, it burns the remains of the day. If you fail to use today's deposits, the loss is yours, ours. There's no going back. There's no drawing against tomorrow. You must live in the present on today's deposits. Invest it so as to get it from at the utmost in health, happiness, and success. The clock is running. Make the most of today. To realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who didn't pass that particular year. To reach the value of 1 month, ask a mother who gives birth to a premature baby. To realize the value of 1 week, ask the editor of a weekly newspaper. To realize the value of 1 hour, ask the couple who is waiting to meet. To realize the value of 1 minute, ask a person who missed the train. To realize the value of 1 second, ask a person who just avoided an accident. To realize the value of 1 millisecond, ask the person who won a medal in the Olympics. Treasure every moment that you have, and treasure it more because you shared it with someone special enough to spend your time. And remember that time waits for no one. Treasure your friends, treasure your family, treasure God, treasure all the life in your life, every minute of every day. This life will be over before you know it.
Actually, I thought everything in the store would be online, but I think they've got some new stuff. So maybe I'll just talk to the girl and be like, hey.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pegram Johnson will introduce our guests today. There you are.
Right here. All right.
We have quiche for lunch.
We have one guest with us who is here brought by a member, and I'd like to ask the two of them to stand up. The guest is Marshall Stanley, who's right over here. He's with the town of Denton. He's the economic development officer, maybe, or specialist. And he is brought by Mike Adams. And thank you. And we have 4 visiting Kiwanians who've been alluded to, and I'd ask them to stand up as I call their names. Starting with Steve Simmons. Steve is the Lieutenant Governor of Division 16. Ernie Wade is the Chief Revenue Generating Member of this one. That's very important. Dan, I think it's Kite. Dan Kite is the president-elect. Is it Fight? Oh, I'm sorry. Dan Fight is the president-elect. And Mark Cox is the treasurer of their club. And we welcome all of you from Christiansburg.
Yeah, that's fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Is Jean Bollendorf here?
They've got blood there, I'm sure you do.
I don't see her. She was going to recognize birthday today, so I guess we'll do that next week. We'll do that next week.
I'll recognize mine on this today.
All right, Steve. Happy birthday, Steve. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bob Haberman couldn't be with us today. He'd injured his knee yesterday. And he had sent us a note and asking us to remind everyone about the grant application process. He'll be sending out grant applications. 79 letters will go out. He's going to try to get them out around or so by June 30. So he's putting his list together now. So what this means is if you have an organization that you want to be sure they receive an application, please let Judge Haberman know so that he can get them on the list and get those applications out. I know I sent him information about Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which would be a new grant application for us to go through this year. And I've sent him that information. So if you've got one in your pocket that you want to do that. Now, remember, the grants have to be sponsored by a Kiwanian. So we'll put all that stuff together. There'll be 39 letters going out. The process will begin, of course, for the benefit of our guests. The grant applications, the process, our club is funded by 3 major contributors. Of course, the membership, our foundation funds it, and of course, we have sponsorships. Those things come from KPAD and things like that. Last year, our grants totaled just under $50,000 that we were able to put back into the community. And with the success of KPAD this year, maybe we can do better next year. So grant application, that's process is getting geared up. Other announcements. The officers are going to meet at tomorrow, Thursday at 3:30 at Mill Mountain Coffee on Starkey Road at 3:30 Mill Mountain Coffee. We've been meeting in my office, but since there's construction in the office next door, the noise has become pretty unbearable in the afternoons with saws and so forth. So I thought maybe moving it to Starkey Road would be better. Also, the board meeting, which is next Monday at noon, will be held at the Kazem Temple. We'll be meeting at noon at the Kazem Temple. Lunch will be provided, but the boardroom at the Water Authority is not available. Believe it or not, the Water Authority has their own business they need to conduct that day. And they have asked us to go someplace else. So that room's not available. So we've arranged to meet at the Kazem Temple. We'll be able to park in the parking lot behind there and then just come in the back door. We'll be meeting in that big ballroom. They're setting up a table for us there. The district workshop, the DEIB workshop happened. When did that happen? Last night? And Sherry said it went great. Thank you, Sherry, for doing that. That's awesome. Sherry is also, all right, what'd I do with it? This, Sherry has also put this on the table. She's asking for people to sign up for a week or so of watering at the garden. She has put these on the table. Please sign up. The column here, this column over here is if you need assistance or want somebody to be there with you while you're doing that. The rest is just contact information. So if you're interested in doing that, Sherry says she's desperate and has offered to cook or entertain or weed your garden, if you'll come and weed their garden or that kind of thing. So please sign up for that so that we can keep all those plantings going like we want them to go. And that is the Nature Park Bucket Brigade. Is that what you're calling it? The Bucket Brigade. I like that. Very good. And with that, we're running ahead of time. Steve has asked for brag bucks, but before Steve does his brag buck, I have a brag buck. Saturday was my birthday. And so I have, in the tradition of John Bradshaw and others, I have made a contribution to the foundation that is
More than your age.
more than my age. It is a multiple of my age. So
More than your age and mine together.
thank you very much.
I've been given the vibe by Ernest Hemingway over here to collect. A wonderful, loyal partner of ours with our environmental work is Clean Valley Council. And so Courtney Plasker, the executive director, has passed along an invitation, an opportunity for everybody. If you need something to do this weekend, there's great films out there that you could enjoy with exciting titles like Microplastic Madness. Another one, I don't know what this is. Our speaker today might know, Leanne might know this, but it's Ag Baloo, the Source of Water. Do you know that? So that's another presentation, but take a look on your table. You can take this home with you if you're interested in taking a kind of deeper dive into environmental issues. Feel free to join the Clean Valley Council at one of these films for their film festival. Thank you so much.
The shy Steve McGraw to make a few brags today. It is my birthday. Those who don't believe that, I don't care. I'm 73, so I've spent more than half my life with perfect attendance in this club. So I want you to know that's because of how nice you men and women are all these years. J.C. Taylor came to the meeting here a week ago. Of course, we didn't have a meeting here a week ago. So he called me very upset. I'm taking my time because I gave $100 brag, and I've got about 25 minutes based on $4 per minute. So JC called me all upset and wanted to know why no one had told him there was no meeting. I said, well, John Montgomery and a number of us all mentioned that probably 25 or 30 times in the last few weeks. And I said, please call John and make sure he has your email address correct. I was trying to save JC a little face because he just doesn't read his email. It's real simple. Yes, go ahead. I know. His address was correct. John had just stipulated. Harry Zuloff. Yes, I am back from Florida Monday night. Okay. And my wife and I are going to Alaska tomorrow morning. So I had to bounce through here, do this, celebrate my birthday. I want you to know that my two most recent new members, Nancy Horn and Rhonda Perdue, are both running for public office. Nancy for Commissioner of Revenue, Rhonda Perdue in the Republican primary on June 20th. Rhonda is going to be one of the several distinguished graduates of Leadership Roanoke Valley this evening. So please join with me in applauding Rhonda's effort, because that is not easy to do. And finally, please get out there and vote early and often. Thank you.
That's right. Any other brags? Here comes Jackie Bledsoe.
Oh, thank you. You don't have to bill me this time. I got $2. Good afternoon.
My brag is more of a statement. This weekend, I was privileged and honored to go to the D-Day Memorial. You all have checked your Facebook page. You've seen the picture of Andy and John and myself and John Edwards at the memorial. I was humbled by the men that were over 100 years old. There was 9 of them that walked up to the front. One of them was still able to wear his Army uniform. He had his hat, and I thought, oh my gosh, he was 101 and still fit into that uniform. So I was indeed humbled by the display and to sit there and listen. Governor Youngkin spoke. And perhaps one of the reasons I went was General George Patton's grandson spoke. And those of you that went through whatever war remember George Patton. He had some of George Patton's quips, if you will, some he couldn't repeat in front of company, but it was just inspiring to sit there and look at that wall and know there was one young man that joined. He was only 15 years old. 15, he lied about his age, but he landed on Omaha Beach at 15. We have no idea the privileges that we have today and the sacrifices that those men made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gene, do you want to do birthdays? Well, better late than never.
And I'm not the boss.
Oh,
We have a lot of June birthdays. Okay, good.
It's the biggest month of them.
I was gonna skip it anyway, Steve. News to you. Well, I will say that this is my husband's birthday month. In addition to our anniversary month, like a lot of people, I think June's popular for anniversaries as well. Gotta just pull up my list here. Okay, long list. Dan Carnes, June 2nd. Our own President Spiker, June 3rd. Joe Gaither, June 4th. That guy in the back of the room, June 7th. Mike Bell, the 8th. Reef Kessler, the 11th. Dan Chitwood, the 13th. Jill Sluss, the 14th. Sherman Holland, the 15th. Greg Lionberger, the 16th. Steve Willis is also on the 16th. Bart Wilner, the 20th. Phil Shiner, who's here today, the 22nd. Milton Hardy, the 25th. Also David Hartman on the 25th. Peg McGuire, the 28th. Ray Sarver, the 28th. Jim Aaron, the 29th. And Jeff Leatherwood and Sam Russell, both on the 30th. So let's all give them a nice birthday song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Dear Lord, happy birthday to you.
thank you, Gene. For the benefit of our guests, brag bucks are something we can do where you can come to the podium and for a couple of bucks, you can get 20 seconds or something like that. I don't know. And talk about anything that you choose to talk about. The money goes directly to our foundation. Right? All right. And with that.
And some people have made it more than $2.
And some people have made it more than $2. Absolutely. With that, Bert will introduce our speaker for today. Thank you, Bert.
My pleasure. I'm a little bit out of order because I did want to pay off for that brag I did before we left for my cruise to Alaska, the last meeting. And I just wanted to say that it was quite an experience. And I think an eye-opener seeing the amount of change in the glaciers that were there. And it's just amazing to see how much we've lost in terms of glacier melt, sea damage, coastal damage. But anyway, I'm just thankful that I was able to do it. It's been on my bucket list for 30 years and had a great time in Seattle also. And that brings me around to introduction of our guest for today, which links some of the climate events, climate change that we're experiencing to our speaker, Leanne Weissenfeld, who is currently the City of Roanoke Sustainability Coordinator. Leanne received her master's degree from Virginia Tech in Natural Resources, master's certificate in Global Sustainability and botany degree from North Carolina State University. She previously worked 7 years in the water quality administrator as the water quality administrator for the City of Roanoke. A draft copy of Roanoke's Climate Action Plan was recently released for public reading and comments. Leanne took the lead in preparing the Climate Action Plan that defines the problems that contribute to greenhouse gases, heat islands, and negative impact on our environment. More importantly, in her plan, she has a roadmap to sustainability and climate resiliency. So with that, I'd like to introduce again to all of you, some of you may have met before, as Leanne Weissenfeld.
Thank you, Bert, and thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to be here speaking to you. I have worked with many of you on different projects before, and you guys are movers and shakers. So you're going to solve climate change by next week. I know it. Hopefully that won't block the camera for the people at home. All right. So like Bert mentioned, my background is in botany, horticulture, ecology. Better?
Yeah.
All right.
Better.
Thank you for letting me know. My background is in botany and horticulture, ecology. So I've always worked in the environment. And then I went on to get my master's in natural resources, working with sustainability topics and green infrastructure and ultimately climate change. When I was in stormwater as the water quality administrator, I also got certified as a floodplain manager. And so all of those things help to bring together the content of this climate action plan. And it creates the ability to kind of bring a systems thinking pattern together for our climate action plan. And that's really, really important for us to start thinking about systems. So each of you have a flyer that you can take home. There is a QR code that will take you directly to the climate action plan on the website. If you don't know how to use a QR code, Jen has graciously accepted the challenge of telling you how to do it. But anyway, in all honesty, if you want a hard copy, I will be glad to do that for you, or email the link. My business card is up here, and we'll get you a copy no matter how you get to it. So I don't know that you can necessarily see what's up on the screen, but it's basically our Earth. That little arrow at the top says powered by fossil fuels. And our entire life, the salad that you ate today, the car that you drove, you know, I heard several people say the room is too cold. All of that is fossil fuel driven, right? Our entire lives are fossil fuel driven. And so the emissions that come as we burn those fossil fuels is equivalent to 4 Hiroshima bombs of energy going into the atmosphere every second. So I think we know that there are 800,000 and such seconds in a day now. That's a lot of energy. Every single second of every single day that our lifestyles are putting into the atmosphere that is driving the problems that we're seeing in our environment, driving that glacial melt. And so we often, the scientists like to use Celsius, and I'm old enough that my brain really has a hard time with Celsius still. But 2 degrees is that threshold that we must not go over. And that equates to about 3.6, 3.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Doesn't seem like a lot. We started our morning this morning, probably 52, 55. We're gonna go up to close to 80 this afternoon. That's 30 degrees different. It does that all the time, sometimes in a matter of hours. And so it's really hard for us to conceptualize what that actually means. But if we think about it in terms of energy, or when you have a virus or bacteria, so normal human body temperature is 98.7 or thereabout. So when you have a fever and you get to that 100-degree threshold, yeah, you might be on the couch watching TV, you're checking your email, but you're not feeling that great. Your body's starting to feel different. It's starting to act different. Now, when you get to that 102 threshold, boy, you're not doing anything anymore. You're in bed. And so our body's symptoms are behaving differently. Our energy is allocated differently in our body. We're just not working right. And so it's the same way with the earth systems. That extra energy that we're putting in is changing the temperature, which is changing the systems of our earth. Those earth systems are what protect us, that give us the value of the quality of life, and has let humanity thrive for hundreds of thousands of years. But it's that threshold of 2 degrees that we must not change. Now, going back to the energy of the atmosphere, 1 million tons of carbon dioxide goes from the atmosphere to the ocean in 1 hour, every hour. If we didn't have the ocean to have that resource of energy collection, our atmosphere would have already changed by 97 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a lot of energy, right? Those things kind of help us wrap our human minds around the problem. Carbon dioxide is linked to all of the mass extinction events that we've ever had on the planet. We are putting in more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere at a rate of 10 times faster than the worst mass extinction event. So I'm not here to be gloom and doom, but this is the reality. Science has gotten to a point where we know that this is happening. We know to a certain degree what weird things go on that are caused by climate change. This spring, our oceans hit a brand new record of warm temperatures. El Nino is coming through later this summer, and scientists are really concerned what's going to happen to our ocean temperatures next year. Because of the El Nino is a natural climate variation pattern, completely natural. And then that coupled with climate change, all of the carbon dioxide, all of the extra energy going into the oceans, they're very concerned. I forgot to say this at the very beginning, if there are any questions on each slide, just raise your hand and we'll talk about it right then. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Great, then I've explained it pretty well. So what does that mean here? What you see on the screen is a map of the East Coast, basically, and there's a red line directly from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to the city of Roanoke. And that is what our weather pattern is going to be like in 2080. It's going to be just as wet and warm here in Roanoke as it is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama by 2080. New climate trends is going to be sneezier and wheezier, is really, it's going to be more allergens, it's going to be wetter, it's going to be warmer, there are going to be more extreme heat events. Precipitation might fall faster and harder in a shorter time frame that can lead to flooding in our downtown areas or in our suburbs. And then larger events would lead to stream and river flooding. And then our more extreme hurricanes and tornadoes, that kind of thing. Okay, which leads us to our climate goals. These are really high level climate goals. Our action, because of the energy that's already in the atmosphere, we must front load our work and work really hard to reduce our emissions by 50% in the next 7-8 years. That's not much. We need to reduce our emissions by 50% by 2030. That is for our municipality, our community emissions, which are around 99% of the total emissions here. 50% by 2032, that lines up with the IRA funding, the Inflation Reduction Act funding that's coming down, that will allow you to change from gas heat to an HVAC, or change out your stove from a gas stove to an electric stove. $7,500 credit for electric vehicle purchases, and next year it'll be right at the dealership. So there's a lot of really neat things that are coming down the pike. We just need to pay attention and take advantage and act. We need to take a look at our urban heat island, our vulnerable populations, and create adaptations and resiliency in our neighborhoods. And then the last thing, we need to decarbonize transportation, convert to electric vehicles. The science behind hydrogen is just growing by leaps and bounds. And so for our larger tractor trailers and heavy duty vehicles, hydrogen is what we're going to see happen in that transition. So lots of good things. This is difficult for you all to see, but basically the chart on the left are things, they're scenarios. If we act to this degree, or we do these actions, then on the right-hand side of the chart, this is the benefit or lack of benefit that we will receive. So essentially the top line is where we are right now. We're doing some work, but it's really not enough. We will reach, by the end of the century, we will reach between 900 and 1,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide. Guess what happens to our thinking at that level? We're not going to be thinking very well. That was really scary for me when I read that. I've done a lot of research for this climate action plan, and there were some things that I really didn't know. You know, it makes sense when there are hot days, it makes us a little cranky, our tempers might flare a little faster, but our mental health and our cognition is going to have a hard time at the end of the century if we don't act. Think about, you know, this 930 parts per million is not only outside, it's inside. And sometimes with the way that we do the air circulation in the building, the carbon dioxide can actually be higher inside. Think about our children trying to learn at school. Think about big decisions that need to be made. So that's a little scary for me. If we brought our A game and we really worked hard in the next 8 to 10 years and we changed to renewable energy, we captured emissions, we transferred into our transportation over to electric, and we biked. Can you imagine if we made biking and walking normal activities? Instead of recreation, if we had protected bike lanes and we could ride our bikes with our grandchildren or our children to the park, mile away, instead of getting in the car and driving. So there's things that we can do as a society to shift our thinking. And ultimately, that oval circle is probably where we will need to be if we bought our B game, right? If we worked, but we're human, that's the scenario what we need to be by 2050. It's a lot of work that needs to be done. Okay, so kind of going back to that gloom and doom, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there are a lot of opportunities for economic growth. There's a lot of opportunities to make our neighborhoods and our communities stronger. We need to integrate climate system thinking and long-term thinking into everyday life. At our home, at our businesses, the work that you as Kiwanians do, the children in the neighborhoods. We need to kind of take that into consideration with the decisions that we make. And here's why. Goes back to human health. We have a lot of people in our community that already have chronic diseases, already have some health challenges like asthma, respiratory disease, heart disease. Our averages are actually more than the state of Virginia. And so we've got a lot of vulnerability that we need to take a look at. This is a map of the city of Roanoke. The darker colors, that darker brown that you see underneath comes from the CDC. It is the map of our most vulnerable communities, socially vulnerable communities. And then the red, the darker the red, the more heat we have. So that's our urban heat island layer over top. And then the squiggly black lines, basically, when you think about, the city being in quadrants, a lot of that is around the Roanoke River, but it's northwest and northeast, some of our most socially vulnerable neighborhoods. If you overlay tree canopy, the amount of trees that are in certain neighborhoods, you will find that the darker colors, black trees. You will also find that when you overlay crime data, it is the same. It's in those same areas. And so there's a lot of our social issues that we already deal with today that might become harder to deal with in the future if we do not solve some of these problems. You'll see when you look at the climate action plan, because I know you all are going to use that QR code and you're going to look at it and you're going to do a survey because you're Kiwanians, right? Even you guys at home. But anyway, the equity symbol, there's a lot of topics in this climate action plan that deal with equity. We need to pay attention to the socially vulnerable because a lot of times they have more and they carry more of the burden. It's hotter in those areas, but yet they don't have as much income. Their electricity bills are higher because it's hotter. Their healthcare costs might be higher or they don't have health insurance because they're in that lower income bracket. but yet they have the higher burden because of how we've developed historically. So there's work to be done to create better equity. All right. This is the back cover of the climate action plan. And like I said at the beginning, I have worked on several projects with this club. You're very impressive. You are doers. You do a lot. You all could be a vital force working with our communities, working with our neighborhoods, helping to bring electrification to our communities, getting out the word, working with our children in the hottest neighborhoods, finding those mitigations and adaptations that we can do to create a better world. Because we've got 8 to 10 years to really make a difference. So I invite you all to take a look at the climate action plan and make some decisions for your families, for your businesses, for, be a leader at your office. If you're not the boss, pass along the information and encourage your leadership to make some changes. So I appreciate you having me here. Does anybody have any questions?
Is $68,000, and I don't know a whole lot of people that are excited about $68,000 needed. Or are in a position that they can financially do that, even with $6,000. It's still unattainable for a lot of people. And then as far as conversion of gas to electric, that's also great, but you have to buy new appliances. So what are the smaller goals?
Okay, let me repeat the question or paraphrase it a little bit so everybody can hear. She asked a really, really good question. Sometimes the price tag of these changes, like buying an electric vehicle, right now they're in the 60s, 50s, 60s. Price parity is coming. They are lowering, especially when we mine some of the minerals that are needed for the batteries and that kind of thing. There's so much research that's being done to create batteries that are better, right? I just toured the, what is it called? It's NREL, but it's basically our national laboratory for renewable energy. And the things that they're doing there are really cool. Just so much research on hydrogen and all kinds of things, really. The funding is amazing. A lot of our lower income residents in the city will actually get everything paid for free of charge. They'll be covered at 100%, both for the stove and the labor to install it, that kind of thing. I think one of the things that we need to do, I have a son who graduated from college in 2022, and I've got a daughter who is going to be a senior. So we've got 2 sets of college loans going on. I can't buy an electric vehicle this year or next year either, but I'm planning. I know I will. Over the next 5 years, we're going to see some big changes. And so I think right now, sometimes it seems a little bit daunting, but it's going to become more commonplace. Take a look at the RA funding. There is a little bit about it in the climate action plan. Not all of the guidance is filtered down from the federal and state levels yet. And more will be coming. My office will do more of that. So it's coming.
One of the small things.
Oh, yeah.
Question with freeze. City freezing funding. Planning. And that department overstressed.
Yes, he's asking about tree planting and parks and rec and funding, for the forestry department. It is in the climate action plan that we need to grow that department, that we need special funding. There are some really cool grants that we have partners, external stakeholder partners, with that are gonna plant some trees. That is something that we need to work with the neighborhoods with as well. Where do these trees need to go? And so, yeah, that is coming, and it's a very good thought. And so kind of going back to both of your points, there's a lot of actions in the climate action plan. Trees are the most economical thing that we can do to lower energy. They soak up stormwater. They're like little air conditioners outside. They cool, they shade, they reduce electricity needs in a home via shade. There's just so many things, and there's a whole natural resources chapter in the climate action plan. Any other questions? Yes.
I totally agree with you.
And that is a challenge. So he asked kind of as we use more electricity to power our homes and our electric vehicles, that source of the electricity, right now it's not good news. Our electricity is 67% coal. There is a plan to have a carbon neutral electricity grid by 2050. And again, it's a process, but we need to look at how we use our land. Do we want to do some localized solar to offset? There's a lot of different ways we could do it, and then working with AEP as well. One of the things that we need to do as a municipality, we've got about 10,000 streetlights that AEP owns. They need to be converted to LED, and that will reduce our emissions. They're our #1 emissions, more than even the Berlin Center. All of those 10,000 streetlights together are a lot of emissions. And so we need to work with AEP. I think that they're a willing stakeholder and participant, but that work needs to be done and planned.
And first, thank you for the comprehensive system view of the subject. If you look around the country, is there a city of comparable size to Roanoke that you can point to as best in case example?
I have some favorites, and obviously the larger cities with more resources are further ahead. The West Coast seems to be further ahead than some places locally, but there's a lot of great work being done out there. A lot of climate action plans, a lot of resiliency plans. There are localities even in the United States that are almost to net zero, right? They've made that decision and they've gone and they've done it. It takes resources, it takes human resources, but it also takes financial resources. But like I showed you on the if-then chart, we either do it now or we will be paying a higher price later, not only financially, but our cognition, our children, the health of our bodies, and societal problems. They will all become pricier and more complex to solve.
On June 21st, our guest speaker will be a representative from AEP, so we can get more direct input from him on this subject. And the only other thing is we talk a lot about planting trees, but we seldom talk about saving the existing trees. Especially in winter time, fall time, you see all the trees that are being strangled by a lot of invasive vines, but we seldom see grants or any steps to eradicate the strangulation of some of these trees. We always talk about planting another one and waiting 20, 30, 40 years before it matures. Just a point.
That's a really good point, and some of the IRA funding is coming down is for that long-term maintenance as well. So that is, a lot of times grant funds will fund the project, but not the maintenance. And so that's something that we need to look at too. The other thing on the, we have more trees, we'll have more leaves in the fall. Those are actually resources. They're not a pain in the rear end that you have to spend your Saturday afternoon and your Sunday afternoon raking and bagging. But what if we used our lawnmowers and chopped them up? I do that, and guess what? I don't rake. And all of the leaves that come into my yard are from my neighbor. In our front, we don't have, tree canopy, but chopping them up with a lawnmower. And I bag them after that, and I use them as mulch and compost space. They're a resource in my yard. It's not a pain in the rear end that takes away my fun on the weekend. We just need to think differently. Yards are, I just saw on Instagram, I think, and I think it might have even been a Martha Stewart thing. We're starting to look at our lawns differently. It doesn't have to be green and perfect anymore. It can be pollinator habitat. And kudos to the nature garden at Melrose. You all need a Bee City sign, right? Yeah. For those of you who don't know, we just became a Bee City this past year, this past little bit. And so we're looking to protect pollinators as well, because most of what you ate for lunch was because there was a pollinator moving pollen and creating that fruit. And that is part of what sustains us as well. So, okay.
This may not be your responsibility. I always thought cows would produce problems.
The methane, yeah. It's part of, agriculture is one of those pieces. I do mention agriculture in the plan, but that is outside my ability, to really make inroads. But that is one of the things that we need to do is doing agriculture a little bit differently. They cause some problems, but we've got all kinds of problems that need to be resolved as well. So good question. Yes, ma'am. Right. So there are different ways that you can do that. There are extensive green roofs, which are usually 2 to 4 inches thick. They are the best thing to absorb stormwater and then dry out and be ready to for the next rain event. But they help cool the building, they help cool the air. They're a great resource. And then there's intensive, which are 8 to 12 inches in thickness. And they can be planted, they can be vegetable gardens, they could be anything. If there are trees, then there probably are some larger pots. The weight of the roof, when buildings are designed, they're designed for electrical equipment load and snow load. The green roof is actually pretty heavy. And so it either can be, it's easier to design the building with a green roof in mind, but you can retrofit. But again, it's like a big old AC unit outside, it's cooling the air. And cool roofs do the same thing, and so that's part of what is in the climate action plan too.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you very much. It's our custom to provide an honorarium, and this week's honorarium goes to the Xerxes Society for Invertebrate Conservation. That's a mouthful.
Our pollinators.
Our pollinators. Thank you very much.
No, that's pretty well, man.
I pronounced that correctly.
You did.
Just had my teeth fixed. Next week is big KPAD follow-up. Michael Braca will be presenting our inaugural environmental scholarship next week. So this is the place to be next Wednesday. Thank you all. With that, we're adjourned.
Good job, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of got, something to do with that.
We're gonna meet with the Christian. We'll meet with the Christians. I see Don is here.
Oh. He's here, they're all-
Thank you.
And, maybe we can.
Okay.
And we can talk through some things, and then you get a better sense of how to present it to the community. Because he's moving his way, but it's got.
This one's in the back corner, maybe there's a table.
Yeah, just let me know how I can help.
Maybe we should have. Chairs hang where they are. I'll be right. Small Brazilian rainforest. It's obviously. And.
Thank you, Wayne. I did not know about the effect on cognitive. What is that? That does that? What? It's the carbon dioxide? Yeah.